La di da di di la di do. Oh, good morning. It seems you've stumbled upon my laboratory. Well, hello. I am Skinny the psychoscientist. Now that the introductions are out of the way, let's have some fun.
Tonight we own the night.
Hello, yes. So it seems you're here because you want to see some insight onto some other ideas for how Blizzard could have done their Boomsday expansion. Well, I was one of the scientists on their team, let me tell you. But apparently my creations were a little too psychotic? Crazy? No, crazy's a harsh word. Fun? Maybe, perhaps? Well, you don't have to be the judge of that. Well, let us get in, shall we? First, I must open up the portal to show you some of the crazy creations that me and some of my fellow inventors have been working on here in my laboratory. Well, let's open up the portal, shall we? Alright, so, inside of this portal you will see some of the most craziest cards, all based around the Boomsday idea. Just like Dr. Boom, the mad genius himself, came up with. Well, here's some other ones that me and my, like I said, help maybe, my minions help me create? Well, let's dig in. So the first one, these selection of cards were made by a man by the name of Eddie in Action, one of my top minions, we shall say. So let's go. The first one is Boom Recruit, 3 mana for 1/4, rare. After you summon a mech, you have a 50% chance to deal 2 damage to a random enemy. Well, if this was seen and with summon, there's that new card that likes to summon the 2/1/2 Annoyotrons out onto the field, and well, if you do that after you play this on 3, you coin, play the Giggling Inventor on 5, well, let me tell you, you have a chance to deal 4 damage to a random enemy. It could hit the same one twice, it could hit the opponent for 4 in the face. This could be an aggressive tool, but it doesn't really have enough attack to be considered aggressive, you know? So instead, it could be used as a defensive tool. Like, for example, Mech Warrior, the one that plays the Dinomatic, the 5 mana card that deals 5 damage split among non-mech minions. Well, you play that, then you play this. That could be 7 damage split among the enemy's field if they're playing no mechs. And that just totally can swing the board in your favor if you're fighting Zoo or other forms of aggressive decks. I like it. Alright, so, moving on. The next one made also by Eddie. Bot Scavenger, 2 mana, 2/3. Beautiful stat line, it's a rare. Battle Cry, reveal a mech minion in your hand. So you're showing your opponent some information in your hand at the cost. If yours cost more, give it 1/1. So, reveal a mech minion in each hand. So you see what your opponent has and they see what you have. If they have no mechs, yours is going to win by default anyway. So your Zilliax just got a 1/1 buff. Your Dinomatic just got a buff. Granted, those are really the only high-end mechs that see play, really, but a 2 mana 2/3 nonetheless is still really, really good for what it's worth. So I say definitely a thing to have in some form of expensive Mech Warrior, even if it's just a Mechathune. I mean, you show your opponent you had Mechathune in your hand, but at that cost, you'd play a 2 mana 2/3 to help protect the board. It's better than a River Crocolisk, I'll say. Alright, moving on. Another one, Bounded Branch. 3 mana for a 2/4 Treant. So adding to that Druid Treant vibe, which was something that I honestly tried. I got up to 3 in the ranking leaderboards and dropped right back down playing Treant Druid. But this would probably help put it over the edge. 3 mana for a 2/4 Epic Treant for Druid. Death Rattle. So when this 2/4 dies, entangle an enemy minion, then it dies horribly the next turn. So entangled is the same as freeze, but it's for druids and treants. So I like that effect. I like that it's like taking a twist on the mechanic that we've already seen and adding it to another class. So when this dies, it takes an enemy minion down with it. It's genius. It's great for token. Because think about it. Now, in addition to having this die summoning a 2/2 Treant, if you play Soul of the Force, which most druids do, you then also stop an enemy minion from doing anything, and then it dies the next turn. Crazy. It would die on your turn. So, at the cost of them killing this, they also lose one of their own minions, which could be catastrophic to them if they need it as a taunt minion to boost up their defenses. Fantastic card, I love it. Alright, moving on. Poisonous Plague. 3 mana rogue spell. Give a friendly minion poisonous. If you combo, summon a 1/1 copy of it. So you'd have 2 minions with poisonous at the cost of just playing 1 spell to give 1 minion poisonous. Crazy, devastating, destructive, I love it. Alright, moving on. Gloomy Wax. 2 mana for a 2/2 elemental for mage. A good early elemental for mage to add to the elemental tag, because we didn't see too many, if any, elementals added for mage in the new expansion. We saw maybe some that add spell damage, but this has Divine Shield and Lifesteal. Granted, it's an uncommon, so it might not see too much play, but having that Divine Shield means it's going to stick around for at least 2 hits. That's actually pretty good. It already has Lifesteal, so playing Jaina with it won't make too much of a difference, but that Divine Shield, you know, you could take out 2 Fireflies. You could then proceed to use this in some sort of way as just something for 2 mana instead of playing your hero power. It's something that could deal damage to the face later on, just like any other minion. The Divine Shield, if potentially mage had any other reason to have something with maybe Divine Shield, you could use Blood Knight for it. But perhaps maybe one of the weaker cards we've seen, but it's an elemental, so it could combo with things nonetheless. Alright, moving on. Netherwing Drake. 5 mana for a 2/7 rare neutral dragon. Spell damage +1. Alrighty, great. Has a lot of health, has spell damage +1, something that you want to see. And then, Battle Cry. If you have 10 mana crystals, gain 5 attack. So 5 mana for a 7/7 dragon with spell damage at the end of the game. That sounds pretty devastating. Granted, the Omega cards don't see too much play right now, but give it some time because it's still early here in the Boomsday expansion. We very well may see the Omega cards see their full light later on, whether it be some sort of Warlock deck, or maybe even Priest to help heal it up to its full potential. I like it. 5 mana for a 7/7 late game destructive card. Alright, moving on. Outcast Evian. 3 mana for a 3/6. Whenever your hero takes damage on your turn, hero power, Cabal Lackey, need I say more? Give a random friendly mech minion in your hand +2/+2. Granted, Warlock does not have too many mechs as it is, but if they played some of the neutral mech cards, well, they could just keep getting buffed and be a crazy Ziliax combination. I mean, that just sounds crazy in Warlock, as it is. Warlock's hurting themselves all the time, if you think about it. So, this is just another way to help boost your Spellstone and give some more incentive if you hurt yourself by buffing the mechs in your hand. That's +2/+2, that's a lot! If you think about something with Magnetic. Alright, moving on. Mechanoid, 5 mana for a 5/5 mech. Death Rattle, give your mech minions +1/+1. Now, this needs for this Mechanoid to die. Right. It's a mech, so it already can get Magnetic with some other buffs to give it Taunt, or perhaps even Ziliac to give it Taunt and deal a lot of damage. So when this dies, this buffs the mechs on your field. You may not have too many mechs on the field, but think about this in Hunter. All your little 0/2 goblin bombs now become 1/3s that can attack, deal damage, and eventually when they die, they're going to hit your opponent for more damage in the face. It's a great AoE buff to buff up the Hunter's Death Rattle minions, and frankly, it just could be something played in all mech decks. It's another 5-drop, it's competing with War Gear and Ziliax. I don't think it would really beat out any of them, But if some form of aggressive mech decks need that final AoE buff effect, this is where this guy comes in. Rateability, if I was to rate it, because there's never rarity, probably uncommon. I don't see it being too strong enough to be an epic or rare, but it's a good enough body to just buff with some magnetic things as it is. Alright, moving on. Mech Engineer. 5 mana for 1/1. Summon a 5/5 mech. Granted, again, it is competing in the 5-drop against Ziliax and Wargear, but it's 6 stats across 2 bodies. If that 5/5 mech is also a 5/5, that new shaman the new tempo evolved shaman that everyone's seeing out and around, fighting on ranked, that would be great, having 2 5/5s. It's their doppelgangster brought back, I tell you. Oh, it would be crazy, and plus it's a mech. It summons a big mech, I'm sorry. So the little guy himself, he'll probably die, but his whole purpose was to give you a 5/5 mech to buff with things. Absolutely phenomenal. Alright, uncommon is fair, I'll say that. So thank you, Eddie, one of my most prized minions, for creating these fantastic cards. Next, moving on. Nafi is my next minion that helped me to create some of these crazy cards in my laboratory. Alright. So Nafi, let's see what you bring to show to the class and the audience here that loves to take a tour of my laboratory. Alright, so Arcanite Power Converter. 3 mana for a 0/3 totem for Shaman. While in play, your spells become power surges of the same mana cost. Well, you may be wondering what a power surge is. So remember, while this card stays out, your spells become power surges of the same mana cost. So, here's what a power surge is. Your spells change into these. Deal damage equal to the power surge's mana cost. So your spell, now, we'll jump back. So that while having this converter out, instead of your Volcano dealing 5 damage AoE, instead, it just deals 5 damage. Because it deals damage equal to Power Surge's mana cost. And it changes your spells into Power Surges of the same mana cost. So, your Volcano now, instead of clearing the board, you can use to deal 5 to the enemy face. That new Shaman spell that lets you buff up and change, that lets you change your minions into legendary minions that cost 7 mana, now becomes 7 mana that you can, 7 mana spell that deals 7 anywhere you want, because it deals damage equal to its mana cost. Granted, you're overloaded by 1, but you can then deal 7 to the face, deal 5 to the face with Bloodlust if you have no minions out. This totem single-handedly could bring Shaman back into the meta, and that is cards that we need nowadays, you know? Things that could make any deck viable, even if it's kind of weak. Alrighty, moving on. Grounding Totem, 3 mana for a 0/6 totem. Whenever your mana crystals become overloaded, Lava Burst, overloading by 2, playing even just a 1 mana thing that deals 3 that overloads it. Instead, whenever your mana crystals become overloaded, deal damage to this thing instead. So instead of you having to pay the price of having 2 less mana next turn, instead this Grounding Totem took 2 damage for you, so you can just keep slinging out spells. Again, another thing that could make aggro, aggressive, board-centric Shaman good, another card like this. Things to help knock off the damage or the reduction of their overloaded spells. Another great card, like I said. Good job, Nafi. Again, more cards. The last card from Nafi, possibly the last thing that could help make Shaman be aggressive and good in the meta, just like all the other decks. 4 mana for a 4/4. Kuranai Artificer. Kuranai, I'm sorry. Battlecry. From now on, so for the rest of the game, your totems are also mechs. Your totem, your Grounding Totem, or your Arcanite Power Converter, or even just your Hero Power, turns your totems into mechs that can be buffed with other things like Magnetic. Your Ziliax just got spell damage +1 from the totem, or just was able to heal all of your things 1 health. So, I mean, that's pretty good if you consider making all of your totems no longer totems and making them mechs for the purpose for you to be able to magnetic them up and go phase and hitting hard. Is it good enough? Possibly. I'm not saying it's going to break the meta altogether or anything, but it could just be enough to get it back in there. So thank you, Nafi, for these submissions. Hopefully you'll become climbing the ranks some days in my future cards that we create. Anyway, moving on. These next cards are submitted by one of, if not, my right-hand man in my laboratory. My second compadre next to Eddie, Torva. Torva created some of these crazy cards for Boomsday. But they just were so good and crazy that the Blizzard devs didn't want me or anybody in my division to make cards. And here's why. A 1 mana legendary spell for Priest. Each player increases the maximum life total by the amount of health the hero has been restored this game. So, instead of healing up to 30, now it says anytime that you have healed, add that to your maximum life total. Granted, this does indeed help warlocks on the same notion. It does not heal you, it just increases your max life total by the amount that you've healed. And with things like Divine Hymn, good luck trying to kill a priest. I definitely think it's a card to help maybe try to... This could even help out Mechathune Priest, to be honest with you, because they just care about having life to survive to the end game. And if not, this is just another way to make Priest be buffy and survive long enough for them to get some other form of OTK combo off, whether it be the OTK Pig Charging Boar Priest, Mechathune Priest, or some other deck that maybe we haven't seen yet, because that's the only thing Priest can do right now is make OTK decks to try to survive. Anyway, good card, I like the idea, but will it bring out anything else? I'm not sure. Anyway, moving on. Humanize, a 2 mana uncommon mage spell. Silence all mechs, then remove their mech tribe. Well, this just kills Hunter, Death Rattle, Bomb Hunter, doesn't it? It also hurts other mech decks like Odd Mech Paladin that sees some play. And I've even seen some rogues start to play with some mechs just because of their magnetic buffing potential. This would be great. It doesn't kill them, it just silences them and then removes their mech tribe so they no longer can get buffs. A good way for control mage to try to deal with the meta. I like it. Moving on. 1 MMUN3 or codename Immune. 7 mana for a 1/1 mech for mage. Magnetic Immune. That's right. Immune. Your Ziliax that just magnetic onto maybe your Harvest Golem now not be removed by any form of things or targeted. Now, if you're fighting another mage, I'm sorry, silence all mechs, then remove their mech tribe. So, they would proceed to lose their mech tribe and would no longer be immune. But every other class, good luck. Because, I mean, let's be honest, it becomes immune. You can just keep stacking things onto this new immune mech, and your opponent just can't deal with it unless they play taunts to try to stop it. I mean, ridiculous. Is it too much? Possibly. But the Blizzard devs can always nerf in the future. They have fun doing that. So let Mage have some magnetic mech fun, mine as well. Now in Wild. Oh, good luck to all the Wild players. They're not going to stand a chance. But in Standard, I think it might be okay. Because it's 7 mana. Trying to get to that in an aggressive deck. This is your last ditch effort. This is to say, my last mech, I need to keep it alive. Slap this down. It's not leaving ever, pretty much. Unless like a hunter spell secret bounces it or something. Or, no, you can target it with a sap. It's immune. So it'd have to have been a hunter spell or some other way to maybe bounce it back. But otherwise, have fun trying to deal with this war gear that's now a 6/6 immune that will never leave. Crazy, and I love it. Moving on. Warlock legendary spell. Radiate. 5 mana. Destroy all non-mechs, even if they are immune. All non-mechs. There goes the entire board that's not a mech. This might possibly help Mech Warlock see some play. It doesn't see any play as it is because Warlock itself did not get any mechs to help it. Like the other classes did with magnetic mechs and so forth. They got, if anything, none that see play. And right now, Zoo Warlock is one of the top ones. If not by the time you watch this, the top deck in the meta. Zoo Warlock. They wouldn't play this, obviously. If some sort of slower mech warlock was to see play, this would see play. Because then all your mechs are survived. Granted, all of your opponent's mechs also survive. Do you do that then? I'm not quite sure if it's worth it, but anyway, it was a good idea to try, and possibly, if this was to be made a card, then it would inspire Warlock cards to be a thing. See, with some cards, you don't need to make other class cards to help it. You need to have one card that puts it over the top to help make it be a deck. And this might be just good enough to help Mech Warlock become a thing. Moving on. Treant Project. Druid card, 3 mana, summon a giant treant for each player. A giant treant is an 8/8 treant. Pretty crazy stuff. Alright, so, moving on. I mean, it summons a giant treant, so, for each player, what is your opponent going to do with an 8/8 treant? Beat you down and kill you? You have armor to game, but I don't think druids would ever really play this, because there's too much zoo going around. Granted, you could do this and naturalize, and then you have an 8/8 treant, and your opponent's like, then in that case, that's really good. So, possibly. Possibly might see enough play for it to work. Alright, moving on. Down for some rogue cards? Well, to go along with the whole rogue death rattle package, here's a good spell for them. Second Death. 8 mana. Activate all death rattles that were triggered by your minions this game. Summon a bunch of 7/7 mechanical mythical dragons. 1/2 oozes with charge. 5/5 devil swords. Need I say more? Absolutely crazy. Beautiful. Just what I like that the Blizzard devs would not allow. Perfect. Alright. Moving on. COM80 3 and FORC3RO, codename Combo Enforcer. 1 mana, 2/1 mech. Combo. Draw a card that was shuffled into your deck during your last turn. Fantastic of a card. I mean, think about it. You either get Pogo Hopper, or your card you shuffled in with your Feldery Strider that then, when you draw it, draw another card and get a 4/4. This is what might help put Shuffle Rogue over the top in terms of power level and all around good, clean, whole, Hearthstone fun. Well, it's also really good if you're playing the espionage card that shovels in a bunch of cards while you just drew one of your cards that is your opponent's class, but could be good. Could be good, it costs 1. But I definitely think the Feldery Striders take perfect, beautiful advantage of this, and then the Pogo Hoppers. It's that card that Shuffle Rogue needed to help make it to be a top tier meta deck. Anyway, beautiful idea. Moving on. The lab. The actual Boomsday lab in a card. The devs didn't want to do this because they were like, oh, quest, we've already done that. But anyway, 1 mana, legendary quest. Take 7 damage, and then your reward, draw every 7 cost card in your deck. Yes. So, Spellstones are pretty nuts. 7 cost card. Oh, you mean Dr. Boom Mad Genius. The man that runs the lab himself. See, when we pitched this idea to the Blizzard devs, they were like, oh, we can't have them tutoring for too many cards. And then they come out with the Druid card that lets you search for a bunch of things or reduces the cost of cards in a card in your hand by 7. Come on, Druid, lay up. This is to help try to give Warrior an edge in the meta. Help to give it some reason, some good deck. The 7 cost Warrior deck. I love it. Anyway, thank you, Torva. Alright, so now on to the cards that I, Skinny, the psycho-scientist, have made to try to pitch as my very own creations. But the Blizzard devs, unfortunately, were like, no, those aren't good enough. We're going to kick you out and send you to your own laboratory. So, here we are. Time to get to my creations. Skinny's Stitching Arm. 1 mana, 1/1 mech. Epic with Stitch. You maybe wonder, Stitch? What is that keyword? Well, you know how Magnetizes attaches this mech in your hand to this mech on the field? But what if you have 2 mechs on the field? You play this in between them and stitch the 2 of them together. Talk about crazy, right? And then you get a huge minion with all of these goody abilities and stats, jamming the opponent right in the face. Now, there are some downsides. You lose tempo, number 1. Number 2, there's a lot of secrets that don't like it if you attack with 1 minion. Noble Sacrifice, Freezing Trap, Vaporize. So, I understand why they didn't want to make this thing be a card, but think about how crazy it could be. You could honestly win some games here. If your opponent throws something and you stitch them, it probably, I wouldn't make it be written in the code, they would lose the frozen because it's overtaken by the other card. So it unfreezes cards. I mean, it's cheap. So if you draw it late game, you go stitch it together. Push come to shove, play this on 1. If you're fighting a priest, they're not going to kill it. So you just then proceed to combine this with magnetic things, and you're off to the races, aren't you? Alrighty. Moving on. Psychotic Samurai. 8 mana for a 2/2. Magnetic Wind Fury. So to go along with the Mage Legendary to make something immune, I felt like this is appropriate to make something have Wind Fury as a mech. If it's a 9/10 and this gets magnified to it, it becomes an 11/12 with Wind Fury and whatever other stats it had to hit for 22 damage. This is a finisher card. This is a good mech card to help the mech decks win over the rest of the meta. And because there's Wind Fury, hopefully you can take out 2 of those 1/5 taunt scarabs that your opponent had out to help give your other minions an advantage to break through. But otherwise, it gives +2/+2 in Wind Fury. That could be very strong on the same notion if you just top deck this with having nothing on the field. It's not perfect at all. So you need to have it where you have a few good mechs out and then you buff it up and you're good to go. Heck, you could even do it to a Goblin Bomb. Make that thing be a 2/4 with Magnetic Wind Fury, Death Rattle, deal 2 damage to the enemy face, and it hits for 4 damage. Your opponent's not going to normally want to kill off your bombs, so there we go. I feel like this would see play in almost, if not, every mech deck that's currently out in the meta right now. Anyway, let's see what else I've come up with. Skinny's Ultimate Scheme. There is no neutral scientist, and that's where I wanted to come in. To become the neutral scientist, to twist up and add crazy things to the world of Hearthstone than we've never seen before. So my legendary spell, Skinny's Ultimate Scheme, 9 mana. This eats up your whole turn, but what does it do? Replace your opponent's deck with legendary minions from all expansions that cost 6 or less. So if they have 7 cards, it will replace it with 7 random legendary minions from all the expansions. So they could indeed get a Sylvanas. They could also get Shifter Xeris. I felt 6 was the good enough threshold. If you do 5 or lower, all those things are not really that good. But late game, if you make them 6, they could get Sylvanas, they could get Khan, they could get both Elises. Those are good. They could also get Shifting Xeris, Sir Finley Murgleton. Yeah, they could even get Reno and possibly even beat you with Reno. But that's just a gamble you have to take if you're playing this as your only card that turn. So you want to have... This is definitely used in some sort of control deck. Now, it shuts off all the enemy combo decks. There goes all the Druid decks that try to steal things. Malygos Druid trying to kill you in the face. Targo Eagle Druid switching up decks. This also hurts all the Mechathune decks. So if you want to kill an entire archetype, just play this card in your deck. Granted, it's the only thing you can do that turn. So, can you even get to 9 before they pull off their combo? Sometimes. Not all the time. Granted. But sometimes you can. And that'll be enough to cause your opponent to want to concede. They may not concede though, because they might keep playing thinking, oh, he gave me Sylvanas' cons. When in reality, you gave them more trash than good things, statistically. So, if I have a scheme, am I a scientist card? Yes, I am! Skinny the Psycho Scientist, 8 mana for a 7/9. Haunt. Fill your hand with legendaries from the past. I am a juiced up Toki Time Tinkerer. Instead of giving you 1, I'll fill your hand with them. Dr. Booms, Sylvanas', Reno Jacksons, Mal'Ganis's, Ragnaros's. Granted, yes, I could also fill your hand completely with trash. But if I'm filling your hand, you will, more times than not, get at least 2 cards that are good for you to have in your hand. Heck, even aggressive decks would use this as refill. I would be played in all the decks. Can you imagine this? My face in all the decks. Ah, crazy. And if you haven't noticed, I love crazy. Well, now that you've seen the cards that we were brewing up with over here in my laboratory, that the Blizzard devs honestly didn't take too kind of. Some for good reasons, some for not. Partially because we would be breaking the game with Immune and giving things Wind Fury and changing opponents' decks and filling your hand with crazy legendaries. Well, I guess that's just Skinny the Psycho Scientist and his minions for you. Well, hopefully you'll all partake in our next custom card craziness. And with that, I will see you all next time. Alrighty, ta-ta, arrivederci, don't forget to write. Au revoir.
La la